All right, welcome back to another episode of the Multifamily Innovation Podcast. Got a great interview for you. We've got the CEO and founder of PayReady, and a remarkable human being who's built an organization from the ground up and has put together a really great team to think through what the customer needs in terms of how we collect and receive rent after somebody moves out. So you're looking at that whole sort of accounts receivable system and process, from communications to integrations to collection agencies, all of the platforms, so you can make payments frictionless and easy for the customer. All of that matters to your ability to keep money into the business after somebody leaves. Some really compelling things about what he explored in terms of the first 90 days after somebody moves out, their strategy and how to capture that income, and then seamlessly integrate that into other applications in the business. And so many relationships that come together with what they've put together in terms of creating value for multifamily owners. But most compelling is what they're doing to gap the communication that we all know is hard to get from multifamily owners and operators, because we have turnover at our properties and people really aren't trained for this. And in so many ways, there's, Lynn mentioned in the interview, so many ways it's difficult to navigate these conversations. But when you put a system and a process in place with technology, you get to the answer faster. You get to the money faster. So with that, I hope you enjoy this interview. Have a listen with Lynn. So Lynn, welcome in. I just want to get to know you a little bit more about what you're working on with PayReady. I know you're doing some interesting things, so talk to us a little bit about what you're working on.
Yeah, great to meet you and be here. Currently, we are working on, I mean, sort of the buzzword in the industry that everyone's working on is AI integration. We've built a pretty robust platform over the last 7 years, and migrating into more and more automation and data mining, and automated outreach and things like that are really the focus right now, and some product expansion as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking my language. I think companies are looking for ways to become more profitable, more efficient in how they go about getting to their yields. Let's step back a little bit and tell me a little bit more about you and what you're working on. You have a great background, obviously, in multifamily and technology, building teams, culture, enterprise value. Give me a sense of like where this all originated. Like, where'd you get the idea for this?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I've been in multifamily since the late '90s, I guess it is. Primarily, my background had been in resident screening, and then lease automation, online lease automation with a company called Onsite several years ago. But the idea of PayReady was really born from that background where in the screening world, you're looking at trying to determine who's going to perform well on their rent and prevent bad outcomes and that kind of thing. But there really hadn't been a solution to help handle the move out process in terms of resident communication, follow up, payment processing, all of those things that go with that. Traditionally, what we saw when I decided to start PayReady was that most of the software is really unit centric. It's unit based, and there's a move out. You're trying to make ready and get the system cleaned out, and oftentimes even small balances and ledger reconciliation was happening kind of off the books, and it wasn't a system to sort of track everything. Outreach to the resident a lot of times is manual by leasing staff at that point, and then even further down the road, eventually there's this gap in communication where there could be a lot of positive outreach to the resident, but there's gaps in communication that were happening, and then some of them would end up in a collection state, and that would be frustrating for the resident and untrackable for the operator as well. So that was the gap that we saw when we first started PayReady. It really just started as a CRM platform for a couple of clients' internal accounts receivable teams, just as a system of record to keep track of things. And then they asked us to build in a payment portal. And then it just, built from there. There's layers that were built from there, but it was all started as a bootstrap startup, just partnering with some clients and, seeing if we could build something. So it's been a really fun adventure.
Yeah, that's impressive. And tell me a little bit more. Can you take me through more of the product, the service, what customers experience when they're on the platform? You mentioned I love how you said that, sort of like an accounts payable, or receivable, I should say, right? CRM, right? And then pairing that with payments. This has been a challenge. So take me through the actual product. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah. So the way it works today, with the maturity that we're at with the product as of now, it's really a turnkey process. So once a resident moves out, the move out statement's created, all of that information is then populated into the PayReady platform. There's ledger reconciliation that happens there. There's integrations with deposit alternatives and those types of things to make sure that we get the ledger cleaned up and correct. If there's an outstanding balance, there's automated outreach that starts to the resident. So there's emails and text messages, in some cases voice outreach, to just remind them that they still have a balance due and give them an easy way to pay. We've worked really hard to have a lot of flexibility in payment types and payment plans, and there's a lot of structure in the background behind that. We just recently released Apple Pay, Google Pay, for example. And then there's what we call the first party process. So that first 90 days is a very customer friendly, brand centric communication style, both automated and through call center outreach, to help clear balances. And then if there's still a balance due 90 days later, there are around a dozen approved collection agencies that we've certified to live in our platform, that we assign those accounts to, that all operate within the parameters that the operators have agreed to. And all payments are still made through the platform. So the operator gets to have complete visibility into everything that's been collected. The finances are reconciled on a monthly basis. There's no questions there's about, what's been received and what hasn't, what the charges have been, and that sort of thing. And it all gets updated real time in the platform for the operator.
Yeah, it's interesting. In those first 90 days, our employees are focused on the new rentals, right? Like the driving and the marketing of new and current residents. And oftentimes that does become a challenge to handle that internally without a platform like this. And then ultimately, in the assignment of the collection agencies, it can be cumbersome as well, because now they're in another ecosystem, another communication channel. And I love how you said that, so this integration or this facilitation of that sort of tougher collection process, after the 90 days, still happens on the platform. Did I hear that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow,
and yeah, it's great for the operators because they don't have to, there's a test, agencies against one another, which would typically happen, right? If you're looking at performance and that sort of thing, because we're doing that on their behalf. And from an agency standpoint, you're getting all of the data and all the documentation that you need to perform well. So everybody gets to focus on what they do best.
And in those first 90 days, you had mentioned something around brand, and it sounded like you've been in conversations and you want to still know, like at the end of the day, that property has sort of a relationship with a customer, and you're extending that in that process in terms of the platform to where the main goal is to collect the rent, but at the same time is to protect risk as well, I imagine, in that communication. What are you hearing inside of your sort of sales calls or with your current customers about that experience? Is that something they customize or they have control over? What does that look like?
Yes, they do. So, there's recommendations that we can make, obviously, but they completely customize the templated outreach, the payment plan delivery, scripting, messaging, all of those kinds of things are completely controlled by the operator ultimately. And again, like to your point, not only brand friendly, but that ensures compliance. You don't have, you're not relying on leasing staff that's maybe untrained on what they're allowed to say and not say and those kinds of things. But also, in the past, it was the last, really the last communication that a leasing staff generally wants to have, the uncomfortable move out, money owed conversations. And that's why it would just sort of sit in limbo until maybe a collection agency finds it. And from a brand perspective, you've put all this work into resident relationship, and it leaves a big opening to put a bad taste in their mouth right at the tail end. And you could see that in reviews. And so we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback on that front as well.
Yeah, I would imagine most people that are in that situation where they have that balance, I would assume that they would want this to be resolved. They may not have the ability to resolve it. And I'm curious to you from an innovation standpoint, that providing this type of platform and this sort of integrated process, even post 90 days, is in a sort of and I'll just say in a psychological way, a better way to approach collections than the confrontation of a call that gets avoided or a letter that we don't open or a notice that doesn't get seen on a door. All these things, like, does providing the things that you've done, like the Apple Pay you mentioned, the different ways to facilitate payment plans, those types of things, that's obviously in the strategy. How's that playing out for you guys?
Yeah, it's playing out really well. I mean, to your point, we're also, I think, living in a culture where people prefer to interact with technology in a lot of cases. Maybe they're too embarrassed or frustrated to have certain kinds of conversations or calls and that kind of thing. So having a system that's able to help navigate that certainly is an increased overall recovery without having that sort of friction that's created in those kinds of conversations.
You're right about that. I mean, it's so interesting because people are very prideful about things. You end up with the story, yeah, I'll pay tomorrow, and it's like they just want you off the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, if they even answer the phone, right? Who
Right.
answers phone calls these days?
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned voice and text and all these different things. So you're coming at them with whatever's going to give the property the ability to have that system.
That's correct. Yep.
That's great. So what are people saying? Like, what are you hearing from customers?
I mean, really, what I'm hearing from customers is they love the idea that they never have to really think about this again. There's a holistic approach that they're not having to do individual testing and rethink integrations. You do one integration, there's several different ways to test. There's complete transparency. The communication tools with the residents, our clients really like as well. And integrations like posting back into the software and making all that seamless has been great too. So the feedback's been really positive. We've grown a lot over the 7 years. I think we've got about 3 million units on board, and we're still growing. So yeah, the feedback's been great. Of course, everyone's asking about, what do we do next as far as, AI integration and further, say account scoring and things like that, prioritization. And there's a lot of that happening in the background as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it sounds like a true partnership where it's never done. We're always keep making things better. What would you say? So there are other providers that do similar things, or even you mentioned collection agencies. There's a lot of people that are trying to tackle this problem. How would you position your company as different from all the rest? Like what are you walking in and making that as a statement? Like how are you positioning yourself as unique in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think we really value our collection agency relationships. So we work closely with them and collaborate on the best job we can do to get them the best information possible so that they can perform well. So that's a very collaborative relationship. there, as far as other collection agencies, there's some great agencies out there. I think what we offer is just the flexibility to rotate between agencies. Even, agencies have staffing issues sometimes. If they get a big new account, there's an influx of files. Being able to distribute that in a way that makes sense is really helpful. More recently, there's several, I think, AI solutions that are really mostly AI based around, communication and maybe some payment solutions and things like that. Where I think, at least for now, we have an advantage is we've got a lot of data, actual real information that we're tapping into for those to feed those types of solutions, as well as a platform that's able to facilitate human interaction. So a lot of times there's hybrid solutions that need to happen. There might be escalations that need to go to a human being, whether that's outsourced or an internal call center of some sort. There might be disputes that need to be handled. There's, outbound calls still that are happening, and all that integrated into one platform and one continuous communication thread for the resident. So it all feels like there's continuity. Certainly gives us an advantage. But, like you said, we partner very closely with our clients and kind of take the path of least resistance and let them tell us what to build onto next. So that's really where things are today.
Yeah, no, that was really well said. And I like you going back to that system, having the whole process end to end in how you approach that. I like that thinking. You've made some really great hires recently, even. So tell me a little bit about your team. I mean, you value culture. I'm sure as founder and CEO, like this matters to how you build the company. Tell me a little bit about the team.
Yeah, well, the team is great. I mean, the core team that we all started with, it's kind of like family. We had worked together, most of us, at a couple different spots. And really the biggest driver behind starting the business was to keep the band together, so to speak. It was like, you get these startups and they sell and you get broken apart. And when you go through wars with your compadres, you bond, it's a family atmosphere. And I'm really lucky to have a core group of people that has been through a lot of stuff, but has the same outlook on everything, which is just liking to solve puzzles, enjoying challenges. When we face difficulties or struggles, our reaction is kind of excited to overcome it. And so that was really one of the main reasons for starting the business, is just because our company had been sold and we wanted to keep a lot of our group together. And then over time, as we've added, you try to add people that are a good culture fit, but bring a lot of different skills and backgrounds to the table, so you can get those layers in. And I feel really fortunate that the last couple of years we've added some amazing teammates that add a lot of different, background, viewpoints, but still maintain the culture of, leave your ego at the door, the best idea wins. Let's prioritize the main things first, work really hard to overcome the problems, react to challenges in a positive way, and be, super supportive of each other. Everyone in the company is still, we've got a pretty flat organization. Everyone's got the opportunity to reach outside of their job description, and it's necessary at a smaller company, and not have anyone feel like their toes are being stepped on. So there's a lot of leeway with all of that. So it's a very fun, fast-paced, positive, optimistic environment.
Yeah, it's great to hear. I know that tackling those challenges at times, you need to have that in place. You mentioned a little bit of an outlook. Have you thought through what that vision looks like going forward? And some you may be able to share, maybe others not, but it's also challenging sometimes to think too far forward. But what's next, I guess?
Yeah, the first things first is we're really focused on even executing better on what we do today. We're really analyzing the debt that we've accumulated in the system and better ways to handle that, ways to rotate accounts, using statistics and algorithms, Debt buying is something we have our eye on as well, getting creative in that space. As far as product expansion, we're certainly going to be expanding the product, moving a little bit upstream into the resident life cycle, things that are involved in the move out process. So things like potentially eviction management. We've had clients ask us to help with communication with late paying residents, for example, before a move out, using the platform for that. And so we're focused on doing what we do best, but expanding the product where it makes sense, but being careful not to overreach, because in my experience, when you expand into too many product sets, it becomes unwieldy to support, and the experience starts to fail. So a careful balance between all of that.
Right. Do too many things and get tricky. So did I read this correctly? But you enjoy ranching? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I grew up in Colorado on a
Okay.
small ranch, and I recently moved to Las Vegas and kind of accidentally stumbled into a small horse ranch here. So it takes up it's become a hobby for sure.
Well, I'm interested in knowing what we can learn from ranching that could be applied to multifamily, because a lot of these properties end up being named ranch this or hunter this, and like there's something special about the mindset of the investor in terms of building and maintaining assets in America. And I'm curious what you think about ranching and how it applies to even business.
No, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit of a business. It's actually a little bit of a boarding facility, but I would go back to the same thing. It's like there's always going to be unexpected issues and challenges, and it's about having the right team and network to help support that. So, for example, with the ranch, it's been really helpful that I've gotten some great neighbors and some people that understand where the resources are here, and because there's always going to be things that go wrong and challenges to overcome. So a lot of it has to do with just having the right team and the right connections and building trust.
Yeah, that's important, and that takes time. And in terms of building trust, it sounds like you're doing that with your customers as you've built the company along with them. It sounds like to me. What when there's so much opportunity coming at us, I'm curious to know, as a leader, how you say no to things to stay focused, because you mentioned that a couple times. Like, our vision is like to focus on what we've got now, what we're going to do, make better, and really understand the needs of the customer. So how do you do that? Because that takes discipline.
Yeah, and we don't always say no. My background is in sales, so sometimes you get a little excited and say yes before you should. But the habit of the discipline has really been born out of deep client interactions. We have a client advisory committee that we engage with regularly. And that's been really helpful, because you start to get ideas and start to build things in a vacuum, and then you get with a focus group and they say, well, that doesn't even make sense, but this other thing makes way more sense. So that active engagement with our clients, and then when a client is really pushing us to move into maybe an adjacent area, it's really collaborating with them and testing and working with them on an agile basis to incrementally start to build things out and see together where it's going to lead us. And the whole key to me is just don't build anything in a vacuum. Our philosophy is we're not going to just go to the lab and put tons of time and energy into building something without a really active involvement from clients, and clients that are at least representative of a diverse set of what clients might look like.
Yeah. It's interesting. In terms of your perspective, like, who do you want to spend time with, and I guess who's buying this? Is it the CEOs? Is it the regional managers, the operators? Like, who's integrating this into the companies as you're seeing these 3 million plus units play out?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, all of the above, as with a lot of things. But because we are a centralized platform and really simple to implement compared to most things because we're not asking to interact a lot with the leasing staff. It's typically driven by, a leader in operations. Often finance will get involved, depending on company size. And then we've also found that with this particular solution, a lot more attention from ownership groups driving decisions, as they just, they're paying more and more attention to the financials, and particularly outstanding debt and things like that are more important to ownership groups.
Yeah, they're looking to keep the money, I guess, right? It's one thing to generate marketing, get people moved in, all the expense to maintain the lease relationship, but it can get tricky when that money leaves and doesn't get collected on the exit. Well, are there any questions I should be asking that I haven't asked about what you're working on?
I don't think so. I mean, it's been a fun stage for us. As we've grown, really organically over this time. You asked what I like to pay attention to. I've gotten such a strong team surrounding me over the last couple of years. I'm really excited to focus more on customer engagement myself, customer conversation. That's where my heart is spending time with clients and figuring out what we can build for them. And we have a long-term view on all of this. We're wanting to stay in this for a long time. So that's been really fun this year. I've got to spend a lot more time back with customers instead of a lot of the internal sort of administrative stuff that comes with running a business.
Yeah. No, that's exciting. I love that. I love that you're still in there and you're spending time with those customers. I imagine it helps you mentioned Agile and how you build and design the product as well. That's useful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, my email is lynn@payready. So that's the easiest way. And then payready.com is our website. Just, set up demos and get an overview and those sorts of things. We have an active LinkedIn following as well on our LinkedIn page. That has a lot of updates there too. So those are the best ways to keep in touch.
Amazing. All right. And we'll put all that information in the show notes for those that are tuning in. Until then, it's been great sharing the time. I had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about some of the things you're working on, the team that you've built, and sort of a little bit about your vision around how you design product and help tackle what I believe to be a very important financial system that needs to be in place to capture that revenue that we all are so desperately trying to keep within the organization. So I appreciate you coming on, and we'll be tracking all your success, and we'll see you in the next one.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Take care.